Imagine walking past a restaurant on a Friday night. Every table is full. People are standing outside waiting for a seat. Cars are parked everywhere. The owner is smiling. And you look at all those customers and think, this person must be making a fortune. But what if I told you that a business can be packed with customers, generating hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales, and the owner can still be making surprisingly little money? That sounds impossible, but it happens all the time. And this is one of the biggest mistakes new entrepreneurs make. They look at revenue and mistake it for profit. They see money coming into the business and assume the owner is getting rich. But revenue is not profit. Revenue is simply the money coming in. Profit is what remains after the business pays for everything. And sometimes what remains is shockingly small. Today, we're looking at 5 businesses that can look incredibly profitable from the outside, but can have surprisingly difficult economics behind the scenes. And number 5 might completely change the way you look at a successful business. This is Financial Crystal. Let's begin. Number 5, the restaurant business. Meet David. David has always dreamed of owning a restaurant. For years, he worked for other people. Eventually, he saved enough money and decided it was finally time to open his own restaurant. He found a beautiful location, he renovated the space, bought kitchen equipment, designed a menu, hired employees, and finally, he opened the doors. At first, business was slow, but then something changed. People started talking about the restaurant. Then came the weekends. Friday night, packed. Saturday night, packed. Sunday afternoon, packed. Soon people were waiting outside just to get a table. David started posting videos of the restaurant online. Tables full of customers, food coming out of the kitchen, people laughing, music playing. Everything looked successful. Friends started telling him, David, you've made it. But there was one problem. The restaurant was making money, and the money was disappearing almost as quickly as it came in. Let's say the restaurant brings in $50,000 in sales in 1 month. $50,000 sounds like a lot of money, but now watch what happens. First, David has to pay for food. Meat, vegetables, rice, oil, drinks, spices, packaging, and food waste. Then there are employee wages, chefs, waiters, cashiers, cleaners, managers. Then comes rent, electricity, gas, water, insurance, licensing, marketing, repairs, equipment maintenance, credit card and payment processing fees, cleaning supplies, and all the little expenses that nobody notices until they add up. And then there's David himself, because David isn't just the owner, he's also the manager. He arrives before everyone else. He leaves after everyone else. He deals with suppliers. He handles customer complaints. He checks inventory. And when someone doesn't show up for work, David steps in. So when someone says, your restaurant made $50,000 this month, David might smile. But the real question is, how much did you actually keep? That's the question most people never ask. A restaurant can be packed every night and still have disappointing profits. And that's why you should never judge a restaurant by how busy it looks. The next time you walk into a crowded restaurant, don't just look at the customers. Think about everything behind the customers. How much did the food cost? How much are the employees being paid? How much is the rent? How much is electricity? How much food is being wasted? How much debt does the owner have? And after everything is paid, how much money is actually left? That's the difference between looking successful and being profitable. Now let's move to number 3, the beauty salon. Imagine walking past a popular beauty salon. Every chair is occupied. Customers are coming in. Hair is being styled. Nails are being done. Appointments are booked weeks in advance. From the outside, it looks like a money-making machine. Let's meet Michelle. Michelle owns the salon and business is booming. But here's something people forget. Michelle isn't the only person making money from that salon. There are stylists, nail technicians, receptionists, suppliers, the landlord, utility companies, payment processors, and the government. everybody gets a piece. Let's say Michelle's salon generates $30,000 in sales in 1 month. $30,000 sounds impressive, but now the money starts leaving. Employee wages, contractors, rent, electricity, water, beauty products, cleaning supplies, laundry, insurance, marketing, software, equipment, repairs, taxes. And then Michelle discovers another problem. The salon depends heavily on people. If her best stylist leaves, some customers might leave too. If Michelle herself stops working, the business might slow down dramatically. And that creates a very important question. Is Michelle building a business, or did she simply create herself a job? Because there's a huge difference. Imagine Michelle takes home $5,000 after expenses. That sounds pretty good. But what if she worked every single day? What if she answered clients at midnight, managed employees, bought supplies, handled complaints, cleaned the salon, solved emergencies, and also worked behind the chair herself? Then that $5,000 isn't just passive business income. She's being paid for her labor too. And that's an important lesson. When you are analyzing a business, you have to separate the owner's income from the actual profitability of the business. If the owner disappears for 1 month, does the business continue making money, or does everything stop? That's the question. Because a business that depends completely on the owner can be profitable, but difficult to scale. And sometimes, what looks like entrepreneurship is simply a very demanding job with a business sign outside. Now let's move to number 2, the trucking business. This is one of the businesses that can look extremely profitable on social media. You see the trucks, you see the lifestyle, you hear people talking about contracts. Someone says, my truck made $20,000 this month. And suddenly, someone else thinks, I need to buy a truck. But there's a sentence missing. My truck generated $20,000 in revenue. Revenue, not profit. Let's follow James. James buys a truck. Maybe he pays cash. Maybe he finances it. Either way, the truck costs money. If he financed it, there's a monthly truck payment. Then comes fuel. And fuel can be one of the biggest expenses. Then insurance, maintenance, tires, oil changes, repairs, registration, permits, tolls, dispatch fees, and if someone else drives the truck, driver wages. Now, imagine the truck breaks down. James isn't earning money while the truck is sitting in a repair shop, but some of his expenses don't stop. The truck payment doesn't stop, insurance doesn't necessarily stop, and eventually the repair bill arrives. And sometimes that repair bill can be enormous. This is why revenue can be extremely misleading in trucking. Imagine 2 trucking companies. Company A generates $1 million in annual revenue. Company B generates $700,000. Which company is better? You can't answer that from revenue. Maybe Company A spends $950,000 to generate that $1 million, while Company B spends $450,000 to generate $700,000. Suddenly, Company B looks much better. That's why smart business owners don't obsess over revenue alone. They look at margins. They look at operating expenses. They look at cash flow. They look at debt. They look at return on invested capital. And they look at how much money the business actually keeps. Because a truck generating a lot of revenue doesn't automatically mean the owner is getting rich. The truck might be working hard while the owner is barely breaking even. And then there's another issue. The truck itself is wearing out. The more miles it travels, the more maintenance it needs. Eventually, it needs to be replaced. So when somebody tells you trucking is easy money, don't just ask, how much does the truck make? Ask, how much does the truck keep? That's a much intelligent question. And now we have reached number 1, the wedding planning business. This one is especially deceptive because weddings involve a lot of money. Thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, sometimes much more. There's a venue, food, decorations, photography, music, flowers, transportation, dresses, entertainment, and planning. So when someone sees a wedding planner charging $5,000 for an event, they might think that person is making $5,000 per event. But that's not how business works. Let's meet Jessica. Jessica is a wedding planner. She charges $5,000 for a wedding. Sounds fantastic. But now let's follow Jessica's calendar. Months before the wedding, she's talking to the couple, answering emails, taking phone calls, meeting vendors, visiting venues, creating schedules, negotiating contracts, managing timelines, solving problems. Then comes the wedding day. Jessica arrives early. She checks the decorations, confirms the vendors, checks the fitting arrangements, talks to the caterer, coordinates the photographer, manages the schedule, and handles last-minute changes. And then something goes wrong. The DJ is late. Who gets the call? Jessica. The flowers aren't ready. Who gets the call? Jessica. The caterer has a problem. Who gets the call? Jessica. The bride is stressed. Who gets the call? Jessica. The seating chart is wrong. Who gets the call? Jessica. And somehow every emergency becomes Jessica's emergency. Now remember, she charged $5,000. That doesn't mean she made $5,000. She may have assistants, transportation expenses, software, marketing, insurance, phone bills, client gifts, contractors, taxes, and most importantly, her time. This is one of the biggest traps in small business. People calculate their revenue, then subtract the obvious expenses, and they forget to calculate the value of their own labor. Jessica might be generating good cash flow, but if she personally has to manage every wedding, answer every client, solve every emergency, and coordinate every vendor, her income is limited by one thing: time. There are only 24 hours in a day, and eventually you can't work any harder. That's why the most important question isn't, how much does this business make? The better question is, can this business make more money without requiring more of the owner's time? That's where scalability comes in. And that's where many entrepreneurs discover the difference between owning a business and owning a job. Now, let's step back. The 5 businesses we talked about aren't bad businesses. Restaurants can make money, laundromats can make money, beauty salons can make money, trucking companies can make money, wedding planning businesses can make money. The lesson isn't don't start these businesses. The lesson is don't judge a business by what you can see from the outside. A full restaurant doesn't tell you its profit margin. A laundromat full of customers doesn't tell you its maintenance costs. A beauty salon doesn't tell you what the owner takes home. A truck generating huge revenue doesn't tell you what fuel, insurance, maintenance, financing, and labor consume. And the wedding planner charging thousands of dollars doesn't tell you what remains after expenses or after accounting for the owner's time. So, before you invest your money into any business, ask 5 questions. First, how much revenue does the business generate? Second, how much does it cost to generate that revenue? Third, what is the actual operating profit? Fourth, how much capital does the business need to keep operating? And fifth, what happens if the owner stops working? Because here's the truth. A business can have huge revenue and tiny profit. A business can have impressive sales and terrible cash flow. A business can look successful and still be drowning in debt. And sometimes the person driving the luxury car isn't making millions. They're simply very good at making the business look successful. So the next time you walk past a packed restaurant, a busy laundromat, a busy beauty salon, a fleet of trucks, or a wedding planner handling expensive events, don't just look at the money coming in. Look for the money going out. Because in business, revenue is what people see. Profit is what the owner keeps. And understanding the difference could save you thousands or even millions of dollars. This is Financial Crystal. If you want to understand how businesses really make money, not just how they look like they make money, subscribe. Because the next business opportunity you see might not be as profitable as it looks.